Yo, so today I got a great question from one of our Instagram friends who goes on to ask, yo, Elliot, do you have any reading recommendation, good books on being a father to daughters? He says, my daughter is 3 years old right now and I'm having some struggles. And so you come to the right place, I guess. I have three daughters and I like to read books. So, of course, I've read books on raising daughters before my daughter even got here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to recommend a book, and it's the first book that I decided to buy and read before my oldest daughter was born. And I picked it up out of my bookcase just now, and I recognized that 15 years ago I was using a highlighter, and I highlighted a lot of the passages in this book. So I'm going to share those with you and just give you a little bit of my experience with the ideas in the book. So by the way, the book is called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. Probably the reason why I picked it up, because I'm a strong man and I want to know about strength in being a father and raising quote unquote strong daughters. The subtitle is 10 Secrets Every Father Should Know, and the author is Meg Meeker. And so, like I said, I'm going to go through the chapters in this book very briefly. I've never really done this before, like a book review, but it'll be kind of like a book review. And then I'm gonna go over each of the highlighted paragraphs or passages that I highlighted 15 years ago when I was thinking about doing the best job I can do raising this little girl. My oldest daughter's 15, and I didn't realize I was gonna have three daughters. And so I'm happy that I had this book to prepare me for the onslaught of little feminine creatures in my home. So I hope you enjoy this. Now, the very first thing I want to do is say to you that beyond this book, I am convinced that the best thing that a father can do for his daughter is to love her mother, is to be there, right? And I think that goes for men, little boys and little girls. I often talk about the importance of fathers for boys, right? And it's kind of, it's so important, it's so necessary, it's so overlooked. Fatherhood in general is so overlooked in our society, but because my mission, my calling in life is to reach out into the world and support men, I gotta talk about how boys need fathers in this effeminate world. There's too much mommy in this world. But at the same time, if a little girl doesn't get daddy energy, daddy power, daddy strength, she can absolutely be just as destroyed and degenerate as a little boy who doesn't get daddy, father energy. So before I go on, I just have to reiterate that I believe that families are important. Family values, traditional family values, bringing back the family, bringing back the father, making men strong again so that we can repair the roots of our civilization, which is the family. Right? We have so many lies about the family these days, so much so now that a lot of people aren't having families, right? People are choosing not to have children, not to get married. There's a lot of good reasons why, I totally understand. But at the same time, man, I'm a big advocate for this. I always knew I wanted to have a big family, and I agree. I think a lot of you guys out there that watch my videos, you know, there's a contrast. There's some of you who are MGTOW, and I respect that. I support it if that's your choice, but there are a lot of you guys who really do want a family, want a wife, want children, and of course I support that as well. That's been my life. So I'm not here to point out right or wrong or to tell you to be a MGTOW or to be a married man. The point is that if you're going to do one or the other, you got to do it the right way. So moving on to Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, the chapter titles: You Are the Most Important Man in Her Life, and some highlights that I have in this chapter. Men, we need you, the author says. We mothers, daughters, and sisters need your help to raise healthy young women. We need every ounce of masculine courage and wit that you own, because fathers, more than anything else, set the course for a daughter's life. It's amazing that she says this. Your daughter needs the best of who you are, your strength, your courage, your intelligence, and your fearlessness. She needs your empathy, your assertiveness, and self-confidence. She needs you. Our daughters need the support that only fathers can provide. And if you're willing to guide your daughter, to stand between her and a toxic culture, to take her to a healthier place, your rewards will be unmatched. You will experience the love and adoration that can only come from a daughter. You will feel pride, satisfaction, and joy that you can know nowhere else. And she's right. They need us. And so she hits the ball out of the park right off the get-go. In the same chapter, or in the next chapter, She Needs a Hero, she talks a little bit about leadership. And here's what I highlighted. The only way you'll alienate your daughter in the long term is by losing her respect, all right? Failing to lead or failing to protect her. If you don't provide for her needs, she will find someone else who will, and that's when the trouble starts. That scares the shit out of me. Don't let that happen. Nowadays, the idea of assuming authority makes men uneasy. It's a shame, because if we don't assume authority, then the world crumbles around us. We got to be authorities, man. We are the leaders, and this woman is asserting that. Authority smacks of political incorrectness, all right, in this effeminate world. Pop psychologists and educators have told us that authority is suffocating, obtrusive, and will crush a child's spirit. Fathers worry that if they push their kids to or establish too many rules, they'll just rebel. But the greatest danger comes from fathers who surrender leadership, particularly during the child's teen years. Authority is not a threat to your relationship with your daughter. It's what will bring you closer to her and what will make her respect you more. And it's a tough one. She goes on to say, and I'll tell you why it's tough, because they fight back. You know, like I said, I've got 3 daughters, and 2 of them becoming teenagers. And the woman, the author of this book, goes on to assert something that I've experienced. She says, "Let me tell you a secret. Many daughters challenge their fathers too. They'll dive into a power struggle with you, not to see how tough you are, but to see how much you really care about them." I like to say that daughters will shit test fathers just like women shit test men. And it's true, and it's tough, because you love your daughter, and she's a little girl, and you remember how sweet she was when she was a baby, but there comes a point when the toxic world, the culture, gets into your home. I think one of the things that I wish I would have done a little bit better to protect my children was not to bring the screens in so quickly. And that's like literally bringing the toxic culture into the world. If I could make one recommendation to any father to young children, wait for the screens, especially if you're carrying the screens around all day long, which when my children were young, I didn't have, we had these phones. But when the screens came and we were all giddy about it, we were uninformed, I didn't have like experience with it, we would give it to the kids and they'd play with it. It seemed cool until it became an addiction, and I would do it differently. So anyway, but your authority is being challenged by the authority of the toxic culture, right? Because the kids see what's happening in the culture through the media, and they're like, well, daddy says this, but Netflix says that. This is what my friends are doing. This is what the music says. And so what she's saying here is that you've got to set up boundaries around that. You've got to stand your ground in terms of the values that you have for all of your children, your daughters, yourself, and your home. And even if it's a power struggle, you got to be willing to engage in that. And sometimes you just don't want to. You don't want to see your children cry. You don't want to see them upset. Or you just don't want to. You don't want to battle in your home, but you've got to do it. You got to assume that authority, like she says. In the chapter, towards the end of the chapter, She Needs a Hero. She says, in too much popular culture, masculinity is either disparaged, often by feminists, or displayed wrongly, as in rap music. True masculinity is the moral exercise of authority. So she continues on the importance of standing in your power as an authority in your home and with your children. She says, you were made a man to be strong, a loving husband and father, so listen to your instincts and do what's right, be a hero. You are her first love. This is chapter 3. St. Thomas Aquinas regarded love as, let me move on to what I actually highlighted. A daughter identifies easily with her mother, but you are a mystery to her. You are her first love, so the early years of your relationship with her are crucial. The love you give your daughter is her starting point. You have other loves in your life, but she doesn't. Every man who enters her life will be compared to you. Every relationship she has with a man will be filtered through her relationship with you. If you have a good relationship, she will choose boyfriends that treat her well. If she sees you as open and warm, she'll be confident with other men. If you're cold and unaffectionate, she'll find it hard to express love in a healthy way. Moving on, in that same chapter, towards the end of the chapter, you are her first love, she said, I highlighted, think about the kind of dad you want to be. Sure, it will take hard work, but love isn't just about feeling good. Super important. It's about doing what you don't want to do over and over again if it needs to be done for the sake of someone else. Love is really about self-sacrifice. Super true. Chapter 4, teach her humility. Super important chapter. One that, like if my children, they have Instagram and they see the girls showing their booties, and the girls who show all that flesh are the ones that get all the, the double taps and the likes and the followers. And I have to help them understand that if you're going to put yourself out into the world, you've got to be worth more than, the sexiest new thought on IG. And I talk to my daughters that way. I explain to them that you need to dress modestly. Do they want to? No. A lot of times they fight with me. But I have certain rules about cleavage and midriff and shorts length. So that's what this chapter is about, teaching her humility. She says, humility teaches us rules and restraint, that we're part of a larger community and need to work together for the good of the whole. Humility teaches responsibility, and it teaches us to consider the needs of others. It tells us to look outward rather than focus obsessively on ourselves. It reminds us that we aren't the only one who counts, right? Instagram or the me culture is opposed to that. Our daughters become the center of our lives and their own. And if they do, it intensifies self-focus and makes your daughter spoiled and miserable. So she talks about not spoiling them. Defend your daughter. Protect her. Even if a shotgun is necessary. This is a woman, a doctor, an MD, telling men, get a shotgun. And I agree, get a shotgun. My daughters, the boys in my daughter's class know that their dad's a scary guy. They've seen pictures with me with guns. They've seen me looking strong. They know I'm a freaking maniac. And I can go crazy on a drop of a dime. I like it that way. You need to have, in the chapter on protect her, defend her, you need to have clearly defined moral codes regarding sex. I tell my daughters that sex before marriage is not a good idea. Just like I tell you guys, I had to come to that conclusion and I had to stand in that place because I know that's what's best. In this chapter, she talks about how teenage sex for girls leads to depression. She says sex isn't simply a bodily function. It's a powerfully linked to her feelings, emotions, her character. So I tell my daughters, it's better to wait. It's better to wait on sex. Don't be having sex. Depression is an STD, she says in this book. Teach self-respect early. If a boy, now when it comes to boyfriends, which my daughters, one of the things is I tell them they're not allowed to have boyfriends until they're 16, all right? So that's one of the boundaries. If a boyfriend picks up your daughter at home, don't let him wait in the car and honk the horn, right? Make him come in and see you. Before the two of them leave, ask your daughter what time she'll be home. Tell her boyfriend you look forward to seeing him again at 9 o'clock, right? Teach your daughter sex is for later, and so on and so forth. I'm kind of running out of time here. But you can see that I gleaned a lot from this book. One of the things that she recommended in this book that I did was that I give each one of my daughters a promise ring, right? And the promise ring is around that conversation of waiting until later to have sex, right? Whether they'll listen to me or not, I don't know. I can't force them. I don't know what they're going to do when they're not here. But the whole idea here, and I think the most important thing with being a strong father is having boundaries and speaking up, being there, right? Don't be afraid to exercise your authority. Don't be afraid to put your foot down. Don't be afraid to shake things up a little bit. Be a little scary, but be there. Your daughter needs you. We got to be strong, men. We're bringing back the family. Good morals, values, and young women for the men of the future. Hope that helps. Done.